So hi and welcome back. You probably read I'm going to be showing you around today, but I thought first I'd slightly set the scene, slightly use them building blocks. So I think I've talked about it in past ones, but I really love decorating. So to set the scene slightly, I have wanted to do a room with this kind of like cottagecore feeling for ages. Now in my old place it wasn't really the right kind of room, space wasn't right, and it just didn't end up happening. So I knew when I moved that that's what I wanted to do, that's what I wanted to achieve. I think I really like this kind of aesthetic and theme because it feels very much homely, it feels very much like my childhood to me, that kind of countryside vibe, those kind of things. And I found myself recently drifting towards that the most in everything I wanted to do. I am a TikToker, and if they tell me like, oh, this is what looks right and this is what looks good, I believe them, and it has been all over my FUP, but it has been all over that recently, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So I was like, you know what, I've got the opportunity coming up, might as well use it. So that's kind of how it ended up happening. I had a few specific, is a word I can't say, ideas in mind. I weirdly wanted, and the first person I spoke to, I said this, I weirdly wanted this kind of swamp feeling, which I think most people hear swamp and they think like Shrek. They don't think like what I was thinking, but I wanted like your dark greens, your kind of feeling of the space being invaded. Hopefully this makes more sense to you than it does everyone else I tried to explain it. Now, I knew it was going to be an ambitious thing to try to achieve, but what I also wanted was this kind of feeling of it being its own little world on its own, like a little cabin vibe, that kind of cute, aesthetic-y kind of thing. But I also knew I needed it to be 1, practical, 2, useful, and then 3, livable. It had to be that I could function with all the stuff I was putting up. So a main thing I went for was things like storage, kind of disguising things, if that makes sense, being able to keep things in the space whilst also enjoying the space and thinking that the space looked good. Because I found in my old place I had all the stuff I needed, but I'd look at things and I'd be like, that looks hideous, but I need it, so it has to stay. So this time I really took into consideration how I could hide things that are practical and needed whilst making them look a lot nicer. So I'll show you a picture of what it used to look like. Now, due to the fact I had to stay in Edinburgh for work, I didn't actually get to see it till I was here, which was actually not that new to me. I bought another flat during lockdown, so it didn't seem weird because I hadn't seen my other previous one till I moved there. But that picture is what I had to work with, and there's one thing I knew I wanted to do straight away, which you might be able to see behind me, which is create a photo wall. I love photo walls. I don't think I have a picture of it, but I wish I could show you my first ever photo wall. It was very like a Tumblr thing originally, very like American Horror Story quotes, things like that, band posters mixed in, and I loved it, and I did it, and all my friends thought it was cool, and I thought I was cool, and I knew I wanted to recreate that. Everywhere I live there is at least one photo wall, but this time I wanted it to have a twist, obviously fit the theme a little bit more. The kind of thinking with it is I wanted it to be as if somebody didn't know about the outside world, they only knew about nature and the kind of random bits they'd collect and be interested in and want to stick up on a wall. So I got very lucky because the main actual basis of this wall are homemade drawings that actually my gran did for me, plus the centerpiece my auntie actually did for me. I wasn't sure if I was going to use this here, but I actually found it rounded the room a lot more and gave it that kind of depth to all the other photos. They kind of fit around it nicely. Now these handmade drawings I love so much, mainly because some go from full colour pieces to just being simplistic drawings, some have writing. There's a lot of my favourite authors, there's a lot of very popular characters as well as not as well known characters, and it really just builds this cute little aesthetic. Now the other ones I used were actually from Amazon. I will try to below link everything that I bought, or at least tell you where I got it from, the main bits I feel like are useful. I will try to link to that. So I got these other photos that I absolutely fell in love with. They were the thing I was umming and ahhing about a lot because I had enough drawings, because I've still got drawings left over, that I could have just used drawings. But I was like, no, I feel like it needs something else, and I'm so glad that I did buy something else, because I feel like having the printed design or the more in detail things really help to also round it up, and they make it weirdly feel a bit more collected. I don't know if that will make sense to anyone else, but I get the more feeling that these are just things that somebody found instead of just having the handmade drawings. But this was the first thing I planned out, and I remember I was unpacking, it was taking ages, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this wall, because I feel like if I get this wall up, I'm gonna be a lot happier and I'm gonna enjoy the space a lot more. And it was true, I did. The moment I got this up, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm a lot, like, it feels right now, and I feel like I know what I'm doing with the room now that this is up. Continuing on from that is just my desk. I'm actually currently sat on it. This kind of was the bit where I was like, this can't really fit into much. It has to be practical. This is my vanity. It's where I do my makeup. You might also notice I've got a TV on it. It's the TV from my old flat, and I was like, I'm never going to use it. I was actually planning to get rid of it, and now watching movies in bed is my favourite thing. It's become my full-time hobby. It's all I do with my free time, but I thoroughly enjoy it. So with this space, there's actually a lot I want to do. I find it looks very messy, and it's one of those tricky things where makeup products and that often do look messy. They're very hard to contain and make look nice. But as well, I've got things like my little mini fridge where I've got like facial products. That takes up a lot of room, so it's not like I could even buy storage boxes to put stuff in. I've got things like my hair stuff, like scrunchies. So it's probably the place that I want to work on the most, but for now I just think it looks cute. It's quite contained, which is what I like. I talked a lot in another video about how I was moving a desk somewhere else so it could purely just be for doing makeup, and it does make all the difference. I never feel tempted to sit and like work on the desk now, which is very nice. And when I'm doing my makeup in the morning, my makeup's here, my skincare products are here. I have to keep going through paperwork to find stuff. It's all here where I need it. Moving on now to what I actually think is my second favourite piece. Now this was kind of semi an accident. Now I wasn't completely sure what furniture was being left till quite later on, but I knew I was getting 2 dressers, which actually turned out to be one big one, which I was a bit like, what am I gonna do with that? How do I make that look nice? But I had a ton of these, I don't even know what you call them, I guess they're organisers that I used to put Funko Pops on that I knew I wouldn't need the space for, because as you'll see later, I had a plan for all the Funko Pops. So I was like, I'll just put them together and I'll create a trinket shrine, or I like to call it my little museum. Now, I'm a trinket person. There is a sound on TikTok about trinkets, and every time I hear it, I'm just like, that is me. I am this person, because I collect stuff insanely. I cannot help it. If I go anywhere, I have to pick stuff up. Anything that looks semi-quirky, semi-weird, I'm like, that's mine. I need it. And a lot of the time, stuff like this doesn't get displayed because it ends up in a box or it ends up in a drawer, because it's tricky stuff. It's not practical stuff. But as I talked about earlier, I also wanted to disguise practical stuff. So what I did with a lot of pieces on this is, for example, this is an old little pill pot, which I think was my great-granddad's, either that or it was my granddad's. It was one of theirs, and I think this looks so beautiful. I love how it looks when it's next to a candle. I love the little gold detailing. I love the little cherub, but this actually holds my actual medication in it. So it's one way of disguising something that's not that pretty. And then there's other practical things, like I've got boxes where I keep things like lighters or incense for the incense holder, because I need to have those things around, but they're not that nice. I keep all my notebooks on this part as well. I love journaling. I notebook all the time. I just diary in normal notebooks. And I found that I used to hate that they all looked very messy because they're all very different. And now I really like it because it makes sense. They look like a collection of random pieces, because they are a collection of random pieces. Now, one of the signature parts of this was actually an accident. So I bought this box off Amazon for another purpose. I was going to keep these like mini Funkos in it, and I was very excited. Turns out they didn't fit, and I was like, this is a disaster. The box was not cheap at all, and I was like, oh my god, I've just wasted so much money. And then I was like, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do with all my crystals. I don't know what I'm going to do with all those things when I move. Why don't I try put it in there? And it worked out. Now actually, for the backing, what I use is, if you guys saw it earlier, I have a little York ghost, which I love. And if you didn't know, I live literally only a few minutes away from York when I was a kid. So this wrapping paper in the background is actually the wrapping paper you get of your ghost, and it's actually a map of York. And it's very nice to have that very homely thing in the room, but it's also hidden. But it just brings everything out a little bit more, and I have a safe place to keep all my crystals. And as well, the drawer at the bottom is another useful thing, so I can keep incense in it. Everything kind of practically builds itself out. It's also a really nice place to keep candles, because I adore candles so much. I think some of my favourite pieces are possibly my little crocheted pumpkins. I will try to remember the Etsy store and link them, as well as things like a painting I got for my birthday that finally can be on display. Like other practical things like my steamer now looks like it's part of the decoration, because they do have this very vintage look, but now it looks like it actually fits into the room. There's things like the fan art that we were given from the show. All things like that now have a purpose and a place. And if you look just above that, I created these two prints. So these are two posters from a show I did. So we've got Comedy of Errors and Hamlet, and then I just stuck Polaroids up and around it to kind of decorate it. Now we just pretend that these are straight, okay? These are straight. They are the same place. I must admit, I don't know if I'm like Stockholm syndroming myself, but I'm starting to not hate the fact that they're not on the same level. But that might just be me fooling myself. These were actually one of the first other things past this wall that I was like, I know I want to do this, because I created them in my old flat and I was like, I want to show them off. And I think the wooden framing, I know I'll talk about the bookshelf later, which you guys know I wanted to get wooden for and couldn't. I think the wooden framing brings out that kind of cottagey vibe, the kind of old wood look. And then if we turn to the corner bit, now you'll see in the other picture of the room that I showed previously, it looked quite small, so I knew I had to move around the furniture to get the most out of the room. And I found that even though I could use my whole dresser, there was this kind of wasted bit of space, because I couldn't put anything there because I needed to open the dresser. So I used this poster to kind of almost make the room look a little bit smaller within that little crack of space, because it kind of makes it look like it's fuller than it really is. But I love it, and this poster has been in a hallway for ages and not used properly, and now it gets to really be shown off, and I love it. I also have little details in this corner like dream catchers. I find that things like dream catchers are, one, amazing. I hate sleeping somewhere where there isn't dream catchers, genuinely. I've had them since I was a baby, not these two in particular, but I've had dream catchers since I was a baby, and I always find it so reassuring. But I find like things like that are very easy to get hold of. They're very simplistic, really. You can buy like big elaborate ones, but they're quite simplistic, and they just give off this beautiful look of just having these hanging things from the wall. I love it so much. Going on to the next piece is the bed. Now this, I feel like I'm getting so old recently, because the weirdest things excite me. Like things used to excite me, like going out and all that. No, what excites me now is I finally have a headboard. A bed with a headboard is supreme, and I have one and I adore it. It's a bed, it's very simplistic, but I did get new quilt covers for this. I got the Asda ones. Asda has been popping off recently with bed sheets. I'm very much adoring it. I did try to get the pumpkin ones, because then it would mean I had a summer sheet, an autumn sheet and a winter sheet, but sadly they didn't have it. But they did have bees, and I love bees. It made a lot of sense, and actually I have a lot of little yellow decor things in the room, and it actually picks that out very nicely. That wasn't planned, it just did. And then we go on to the bed. Now I did limit myself to how many plushes I would have on the bed, because I can hoard plushes all year round. I love a good plush, so I was like, no, I'm gonna limit it down. So as of now, I've got my shark, which if you saw the IKEA video, you'll know about. And I've got my jelly cats, I've got my little Miffy, and I've got my toy that I've had since I was an absolute baby. I don't know why I said absolute baby. You're either a baby or you're not a baby. But I've got them up now, as well as some cushions. I do think I will get more throw cushions eventually. I think they give a very, I don't know, it feels like a very granny thing to me, and I love anything that's like granny aesthetic. And then I also have this knitted blanket. Now this blanket is homemade, not by me, obviously not by me. I do not have that skill, and I have wanted to have it in a room for ages, but it's wool, so it's really heavy, so I could never get it to Edinburgh on my own, so I brought it here and I love it. What I love the most is it's very unorganized. It was just done in someone's free time, so the colors are very random, but whatever colors there are in this blanket, there are somewhere else around the room, and it picks them up, which is such a nice thing that this blanket kind of brings everything together. Plus it's just practical. It's so warm and I love it, and yet again it gives it that homemade vibe, that kind of in the wilderness vibe, and I honestly really love it. I love throw blankets, it's my kind of thing, but this one, it just looks neater. Plus wool does not move around. One of my pet peeves, and if you're like me and you love throw blankets, is that they move a lot. If you make your bed and then you sit on your bed, they move, they writhe everywhere. If you have pets, it's a nightmare because they move. Wool blankets that are like proper wool, you cannot move them. When I get into bed, I have to dig myself out of that thing because it's heavy, so it just works out really well. It's almost as if having a weighted blanket, but in a more aesthetically pleasing way, so we love a good aesthetic. Another little detail on the bed is I did say I'd limit myself to plushes, but of course the piggies are here and they now live on the end of the bed. I did have them on top of the wardrobe, but they have been replaced by Hello Kitties, because when they were on top of the wardrobe they were terrifying. They looked like they were going to murder me in my sleep, and Hello Kitty had the more kind of casual, cool vibe, not I will kill you in your sleep, but the piggies do stand guard. And obviously I've talked about this a lot, but I love baby pink and the piggies are pink, so they just bring out the room and I adore it. And then there's things like my nightstand. I knew I had a lot of the like B&M IKEA white furniture, and I love IKEA, we know I love IKEA, but I've had this green locker, which I actually think is from IKEA, for ages and not used it. I used it in my first flat, I believe, when I moved to Edinburgh, and then I sent it home again. I was like, I don't need it. But I recently have rekindled my love for it. One, because it's huge, which I love. Two, it's magnetic, which is just fun. I haven't actually stuck anything to it, but I probably am gonna. And three, it just, yet again, the green with the kind of swampy look. I'll talk about the ivy I've hung up a bit later, but it pulls that out really nice. And I weirdly think it blends into the room better than if it was something white or wooden. And I do really love it. As far as decorating that, I obviously threw a salt lamp on it because I love salt lamps, but apart from that, it's mainly a little home for my Alexa, a home for some pictures and things like vitamins. It's not that impressive. What I will say though, which I love, is, as I've mentioned, I am someone who loves blankets. I don't know how many times I can say it. I love blankets, I love blankets, I love blankets. So this little like drying rack was on my radiator, so I have absolutely took it over and it is now blanket heaven. Under it is just layers and layers of blankets. But it looks really cute. It hides the radiator a bit because they're not that amazingly looking because they're made to be practical. And then moving on to the windowsill, I don't remember if I ever showed off my plants in any of my other videos. If I did show off my plants, they're dead. Most of the ones that are in Edinburgh are dead because I lived in a cold, miserable place and they died. And I also didn't look after them that well when I was there. But I am all on the plant mummy system now. I am actually planning to get more, literally tomorrow. But I love the little plants where they are. I think as well the fact that I have this beautiful big window now. If you're going to look for somewhere, go for big windows. You won't regret it. It helps with lighting. It helps with so much. Big windows for the wind. And I don't mean like tall windows, because in my other place they were tall. I mean like wide ass windows, because I love it. And windowsills. This is going to be another weird thing. So I was in Edinburgh. One of my flats didn't have a window. We don't talk about that. The other flat, it was a very like old where you like pull up the window. So they don't have windowsills. This has a windowsill. And when I say I was excited, very much an understatement. And I knew that the plants had to go here because it gets the best lighting in the room. But at the minute, they're just chilling. I have some other little details you might have noticed. I've got the water pump, which I bought from IKEA. I've got all my stones because I'm a girl who collects stones, as well as coffee lids. I don't remember how that started, but I collect coffee lids for some reason. As well as little things like my Riddler Funko Pop because I love him. I didn't know where to put him, and he literally was just on the windowsill as an accident. I was like, it can go there till I figure it out. But I'm kind of loving it. It's kind of mysterious, so it's staying. As well as my little mandrake, my favourite little plant, which I sometimes do forget doesn't need water, because if I'm just spraying them all, I'll spray it and then I'm like, oh, shouldn't have done that. I'm still on the craze. I need to repot some of these. Some need bigger pots, but I'm still on the craze of putting plants in things that aren't plant holders. So you'll see that there's two of my mugs have got plant holders in. One of the mugs need filling, but I love the aesthetic of like putting plants in things that weren't made for plants. I don't know why, but I really like it. A really random turn of events. So because of the bookshelf, I ended up cutting off this little corner of the room, and I had this coffee table and I was like, oh, it fits, I'll put it there for now. And then I stuck a mirror behind it because I didn't know where to put that little mirror. And I've accidentally built a little bit of a decoration. You'll see there's this cute little pot that's got candy in it because I bought some candy and then realised I didn't like most of the candy, aka anything with caramel in it. I just don't like, so it's currently vibing with the candy. This used to be used as a plant pot, but I actually really like how it looks with sweets in it, so they're probably going to stay there forever. They're not for eating, they are purely for decoration now, and if anyone eats them I will cry. As well as this old plant holder, which I didn't really know what to do with, and I still don't like how it looks. I just put a couple of random things on it. It's got like my favourite teacup, which I do like that, I think that looks cute, but then it's got like a Luna Lovegood figure. It's got Tom Riddle's fucking locket. It ended up being very Harry Potter-y in some random reason. Got my tarot cards, but this is probably a little corner that I'm also going to work on a lot because I feel like I could do a lot more with the space. It does, however, have a pumpkin spice candle though, because it is the season for pumpkin spice and I love the smell, but every time I light it, all I want is a goddamn Starbucks coffee, which isn't good because those things are expensive. So moving on to the final like big thing of the room, which is the bookcase. I have been wanting a new bookcase for ages. There is actually built-in bookcases, but I knew I wanted one in my room as well because this bookcase is also mainly used for Funko Pops, and then it just happened to have space for books. I had a lot of trouble getting this bookcase. If you've watched the past couple of things, you know there was trouble getting this bookcase. But now I've got it and oh my god, I do love it. I did end up getting it in white, and I talked about this in one of the videos because for some reason the fake wood was more expensive, which made no sense. I actually do like the white one. It's the very classic bookshelf that you'd see on Book Talk or Instagram, and I actually am glad I got it in white. It's cute, plus I saved money. I ain't ever gonna complain about that. Just to give a tour, I have a couple of my little Funko Pop shelves. I have a little dedicated Mandalorian one because I am a Mandalorian at heart. I was having 3 little Marvel sections. So I've got my X-Men one, and then I've just got newer Marvel Funko Pops. And then I ended up having some space for books, so I must admit I did just pick the most aesthetically pleasing books. But I've got things like on the topper part, there's my classics, there's my cloth bound ones, because I feel like cloth bound books and just the Waterstones aesthetic has become very cottagecore recently. I see a lot of people posting that, so I was like, yeah, they work. Then below that I just have a random assortment of books. I actually moved them around most recently because the ones I'd picked previously, the colours just didn't work with the room. And no, I'm not someone who would put books in rainbow order, but you might notice that I am someone who will sometimes put books in height order. I got a bit obsessive about it. And I kept a lot of feminist literature in my room. I just feel like that's one of the things that I like to see, especially if it's ones I've read. If I just look at it, I'm like, this book said this, and I find that it really helps. Plus, feminist literature has some of the most beautiful covers. Below it, this one is kind of mainly used for storage. There's my jewellery box, there's a box I use when I'm travelling, as well as keeping all my plays. I wanted to keep my plays in my room just so they're easy to grab. So there's a candle down here because I don't know where the hell to put this candle, and there's a dead spider in it. I found that on my bookcase, I think the second day being here. So the bookcase wasn't here originally, which means the spider came here whilst I was here. When I say I found it dead, I didn't kill it, okay? But scary. Also, I have a pet spider. Spiders normally terrify me, but it's tiny and it has been in my room since I moved in, and it's always on the roof, and I love it, and I've named her Theodosia and I love it. Is she around? Where she is, let me show you her. She literally just crawls around the roof and I will find myself watching her for hours. I don't think she currently likes the light I've got up, but I will watch her for hours. She is adorable and I love her so much. Look, unless she gets bigger. If she gets bigger, I'll kill her. JK, I'd never do that, but I would if she gets bigger, because then she'll be scary. Now, just to round the room off, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the artworks. I've got this tapestry up. I'm also a tapestry bitch. I love a good tapestry. Who doesn't these days? And I found this butterfly one. This was another thing where I was umming and ahhing, because tapestries can be quite expensive, but I do love it. Yet again, it's colourful whilst having a non-colourful background, so the colours really pop out and they pull out colours in the other room. And I do love butterflies, and it fits the theme so well. I looked at a lot and they were like flowers and all this, and I was like, it's almost too feminine, whereas I feel like butterflies are kind of this amazing middle ground, and I do love it. My last room, I don't think I ever filmed properly. It had mainly a Star Wars theme, and what I do like to do is take a little aspect of the previous room. Like, I've got my Mandalorians up, but I like to take a little aspect of the previous decoration choice, because my last room was mainly Star Wars decorated because I'm a child, and bring it into the new place. And this Padme, I feel like, especially because it's a very old frame to it, it just works, and it makes it very like, it fits the vintage aesthetic very well, because it literally is vintage. I don't know where that photo frame came from. I stole it from my mum. It's just below my fan, and I feel like it distracts. Well, I don't even know if that's a fan or a vent. I don't know what that is, but it distracts from it, so I like that. Then another thing I did was put up ivy around the whole of the room. Now, I have to tell you about something. I got these little clips from Amazon. I found them on TikTok. I can't remember who the TikToker was talking about them, but thank God for them, because I had ivy up in my old place, and I feel like the ivy trend is kind of dead, but I love it. And I am dedicated. I am a devoted person. If I like something, I stick to it. I love ivy. It became really popular during lockdown, and I still love it. I think it's really cool. But in my old place, I had it in my living room, and it fell down constantly, and it drove me insane. But now it's got these little clips, which are amazing. They have their own adhesive. It doesn't mark. I tried. I literally stuck one and pulled it off to check. It doesn't mark anything, which is amazing. And it keeps them up. Kind of very much help with the kind of swamp feeling because it's the fake ivy. I want the idea that it kind of crept into the room. That's why in all of the corners I have it hanging down as if it's about to eventually take over the room. That's the kind of feel I wanted, and I love it. I really do. And I think what's quite nice is in a weird turn of events, so the lights in this flat are like in the roof. They're not like once you put a lampshade on, and I actually really love it. I wasn't sure what I'd think at first, but I love it because it kind of makes it, I don't know, it gives me cabin vibes. Might not make sense to anyone else, but it gives me cabin vibes, and I think it makes the ivy look a lot nicer. I did think about then draping the ivy like around the roof, but I think that'll make the room look a little bit too small. But yeah, that's the room. I think if I could give tips to anyone for doing a room like this, it's Amazon. You can find everything on Amazon. We shouldn't really support Amazon, but there is everything on Amazon. And I am quite lucky because a lot of things like the drawings and the blanket, and then I have this beautiful stool under my desk, they're all very signature pieces that I got secondhand. Go thrifting. You will find stuff secondhand that fits this kind of aesthetic. Really, the things that I have in this room that fit the aesthetic the most are second-handed, and they're thrifted. If it's things like the blanket or the stool or the drawings, you know, these aren't bought products, and they are what fits in the most. I would like to emphasize, because I feel like a lot of people do videos like this and then they don't show the messy part, is that it's not completely tidy. For example, the rug on the floor, now the carpet is red. Who decided that? Brothel, it's giving brothel, so I knew I wanted a rug to cover that up. Now this rug doesn't actually fit the room correctly, so I will probably get another one at some point, but this rug is filthy. It was my mum's, it used to be in our house, so 4 dogs have trodden all over it, and people, and she had it in the loft and she was like, you can have it, and I was like, Brill, we brought it, we rolled it out, and when I say messy, but there are always going to be things in rooms that don't fit the aesthetic, and I think you've got to not worry about that because it has to be practical. So for instance, in this little corner area, there's like a random ass box with my shoes and my clothing that I need to wash or put away. Things like what hang on my door don't really fit in. There's always going to be little bits like that, and you have to not worry about it. Things like the shoe box, I can get a new box, I can make it look a bit nicer, but you've got to not sacrifice practicality for things looking nice. If you can disguise things, as I said, disguise them, but if not, it's fine. I really hope you enjoyed the little tour. I really did. I know I've wanted to do this for ages because I love videos like this. So I was like, I might as well just do one myself. And now I have, and I really enjoyed it. If I make any changes, I will try to keep you guys up to date. I link all the socials below. That's probably the best place to keep a check on what's going on, especially the review one, because I talk a lot about the bookcase and stuff on that. But that's pretty much it. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to leave any suggestions if there's any things you think I could do to make it look a little bit more into the aesthetic, or any idea for what I can do for the desk storage wise. I really appreciate it, and I hope I see you guys soon.